Right, hello and welcome to all the listeners out there. Richard Gow here. So today I want to talk about the idea of adding value. Right, so there's so much on the internet that's going around about adding value, and I think that is so incredibly wonderful, right? Because we all have access to the entire world in 2020. I mean, if you think about it, like a couple of years ago, more than a decade ago, this was not the case. You had to send a letter previously, and then it became text messaging, which also, as most of our parents still, subscribe to that, and they take forever to reply. And then, emails and all of that. But we have access to the entire world, and the world has access to us. So the idea of adding value becomes so much more important as we progress in, our evolution as human beings. And especially what's going on with the world right now, when there's so much hatred going on. And especially during this time when we're all dealing with this crazy sickness that we don't really understand, that, has the potential to infect every single one of us. And I just think it's absolutely crazy. If we start to apply this idea of adding value, not necessarily just to content, that we put out onto social media, that we put out onto our Facebook profiles and all of that we use to, advertise ourselves, if we just start applying that to ourselves as human beings, how are you adding value to every situation that you're in? How are you adding value to your friends' lives? How are you adding value to your family's lives? I think that's a really deep discussion that you should have, that you should, I'd like to do it too, is to write it down. And, my one friend sent me a couple of messages the other day, just asking a bunch of questions about him, about my perception of him, because he was looking at, building a personal brand. And it was so interesting because a lot of the questions that he was asking was, how do I add value to your life as a friend? As, he's one of my best friends. So it got me thinking that, how do I add value to my friends' lives? And it's not necessarily because I want to build a brand. It's because I just want to be a better human being. And if it boggles my mind that if that's not on the forefront of your thoughts, how to be a better human being every single day of your life, then what are you doing? Because if I look at everything that's going on in the world with, the Black Lives Matter movement and with, the domestic violence, the gender-based violence that we're going through in South Africa, if we're not asking ourselves, how can we be better human beings, then I don't understand how you can get through the day. I know life is hard, and I know that everyone is going through their own things, but how we treat each other is how we add value. And if we're not trying to be kinder every single day, if we're not placed in a difficult situation and we're saying, how can I inject more kindness into the world, then, to be honest, I read this one post about South African men, and I can only speak as a South African citizen, is what kind of a man are you if you're not trying to inject more kindness into the world? Use your place on this planet to evoke positive change. I mean, if you're going out every day and you're saying, well, the world is this, and blaming the world for that, and taking out your frustrations on the world around you, you're not a good human being. And I'm sorry to be so blunt in saying that, because if you're listening to this, you're probably looking for some motivation, but that should motivate you enough to just be like, okay, hang on. Maybe I need to take a look at myself and see how my temper is affected by the world around me, how I show my love, and what love languages do I speak? What love languages do my family and friends speak? What languages do the people around me speak, and how do I interact with my world that makes it a better place? How do I leave it better than how I found it? I feel like if everyone adopts that idea instead of this me generation, I say generation, but that's been going on since the beginning of time. But the thing is, community is so important. So why are we not acting like community is so important? I understand that people have quarrels. I understand that there's misunderstandings that happen every single day. But I guess it just doesn't make sense in my head why it's not dealt with kindness. Because if you can't sort out a situation, any argument with your words, then no violence in any way, shape, or form is going to make it better. Not for you and not for the people that are around you. Whenever have you been in a situation, now think clearly for yourself, where violence has made something better, where violence has made something happier? If you can think of moments that violence has done that, then you need to look at yourself in the mirror and say, WTF, bro? Like, why? Why are you thinking this way? Because I've never been in a situation, I've never seen a situation, I've never experienced a situation where violence has made it any better. And I don't think I'll ever see one in my entire life that someone comes in rip-roaring, banging their chest, and that's made it better. If we look at history, violence has never made things better. It never has, and I am a fundamental believer that it never ever will. If we're not adding value to the world that we live in, if we're not adding kindness to the earth that we are living on, if we don't add kindness to the people's lives that we are living in, what kind of happy life can we have? So the fundamental change needs to happen within each and every single one of us. And this is one thing that I truly, truly agree on. If you see someone that is behaving in an unkind way, in any way, shape, or form, call them out on it. Bullying has no place on this earth. Belittlement has no place on this earth. Violence has no place on this earth. I just don't agree with it. And I think that's something that we need to change. We need to change this narrative of being unkind to human beings and being unkind to each other. Kindness is the way forward. Love is the way forward. People have been preaching that since the beginning of time. And it is time to start looking at ourselves and to start looking at how we treat each other. And I know that, frustrations may get out of control, but it's not okay. What is okay is adding value, not taking value out of the system. And on that, have a beautiful morning. And if it's evening, have a beautiful evening.